Hello. You might notice something. Meaningful Times with Friends only releases episodes every 2 weeks. Well, we hit a bit of a snag this last week where we recorded way too much. We still liked our conversation about film franchises, so we thought it'd be a nice little bonus for any of you who actually really enjoy Meaningful Times with Friends to release that as this mini bonus episode. Also, all of this is brought to you by Chibson.com. Go check out Chibson.com for all of the cool products they have on their website and follow them on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and check out all of their cool videos, their cool posters for new products that may or may not be real. But Chibson is very real, thanks to CEO Jason USA. Go check it out. Enjoy the episode.
Come in. 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 Come in.
We have, we've discussed it in our group from time to time because all of us have had some, thoughts and comments and what have you about movies, particular genres of movies, styles of movies. I mean, it comes up in our chat where a movie will come up and then it will trigger. I hate using the word trigger, but that's exactly what it fucking does. It triggers. It will trigger someone to just gripe about a film franchise of some sort. And in these gripes, there will be something like, oh, I can't stand the Marvel movies, or oh God, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or fucking Star Wars. There's nobody being called out here. A lot of the source is Nate, though. I'm just saying, not landing at Nate's doorstep. It just tends to happen with Nate, where Nate will have the points of criticism on the length of movies, whatever, and then we'll come back to a Nate remark that then contradicts any of that. There'll be a long movie that he likes. There'll be and in this case it was a film franchise that he's seen, which are the Hunger Games. So that was kind of what got this topic on. And I'm not even exactly sure what we're discussing here, but it was mainly, I guess, part of it was what makes a film franchise, because that was a tit for tat kind of discussion in our chat this past week. So I think we'll go with that first. And then secondly, my word of the day is arbitrary, by the way. But why are we so arbitrary in what we like about some film franchises and what we don't about others? Or is there a difference? Are they all just the same? Are we all just idiots who like different flavors of barbecue sauce, but they're all barbecue sauce? I don't know.
Oh, I've been driving every weekend. I've been driving 20 minutes out of the way to get a very specific barbecue sauce to put on my dry chicken. So they're not created equal. This has the perfect blend of like sweet and spicy. So
what do all you think? Because when the definition of a film franchise came up, it's basically a conscious grouping of films from the same universe. Like because I thought it was more or less like, yeah, movies from the same universe, but it comes from an intellectual property, most likely, usually like a book or some other source, or it creates one like Star Wars that then generates a universe that other people kind of build on the intellectual property. But then, as we've learned, no, it's just movies that can take place in the same universe, which sequels essentially are. So, and we kind of even were wondering, is a movie with just one sequel, is that a franchise? Chances are it's not. Like I would say Ghostbusters, for instance. We just talked about Ghostbusters. That was one movie. They had a sequel. Once the sequel was done, they made a cartoon series. All right. And was the cartoon series canon to the Ghostbusters universe? I don't think so. But it had the same characters from the movie. It had Slimer. It had all that shit. And then they went ahead and, they did a reboot or whatever with the women in it. Women playing the Ghostbusters roles. I don't think that was in the same universe per se.
Did you watch that?
I haven't seen it all the way. I think I was half watching it.
Any of you?
My wife is still angry at me for making her go to see that.
Was it in the same universe?
It was like 2016. I think they may have brought in a character from one of the other movies.
But they weren't playing themselves, right? Or
No.
they weren't playing Egon and whatever. They weren't.
No, it wasn't like the female equivalent of the male characters from the film. It was a completely different group of Ghostbusters who happened to be all women doing the same ghost-busting task.
Did they acknowledge that other Ghostbusters existed at some point?
I think they must. Yeah,
So
I don't remember specifically.
So
it was pretty terrible from what I remember. The criticism, it got a lot of criticism from trolls online about it being a women thing. My complaints had nothing to do with the fact that women were in it. It was just a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, I have a bad record of taking her to movies she hates. She's mad at me about that. I took her to that 3D Tron movie that came out like 10, 12 years ago. Is Tron a franchise? I don't know. I think there may only be two, but I don't know.
There are only two, but they would consider it probably a franchise. Yeah.
I think there's a math to it, and I know I'm always trying to break things down mathematically, but I didn't prepare any diagrams. I was busy today, arguing with some dude on text. But I think Tron's a great example because I agree with you, Dave. Like Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, and Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo is not a franchise. It's just they found success and they're like, okay, I'll make another one. Versus Tron, it has a whole universe beyond it. It had a lot of toys, and it persists. Like people still like the original movie, and they made another one, and it was like tied to Disney, I think, originally and currently, and so there was some Disney tie-in too. So I think it morphed into a franchise. So I think it's a ratio of like how many movies. Like if you make enough movies, like 4, I think it's a franchise, right? And
I would say three. I would say
that was my original point, like before. But then I think with something like Tron, or if it's 2 and it's that iconic and there's that much, like how many Jurassic Parks did they make?
5 or 6 at this point.
Yeah,
I tapped out halfway through the first one. But the point is, I think then that's why it was hard for us to kind of pin it down, is because I think there's a factor of number of movies where you automatically, but I think at 2, if there's all these other factors that you brought up, merchandise and IP and all this other stuff, I think you can make an argument for it, which I guess the point is it's subjective.
It can be. Like, for instance, one of them right here, this is the Mad Max. This is from Mad Max right here, which Mad Max Fury Road. I wouldn't have considered Mad Max a franchise per se, because
there are tons of Mad Max movies. Well, not tons, but there's
not. But it has to do being that I think of those as movies of Mad Max movies with sequels, but more they're cinematic. They're film experiences. The most merchandising you're going to get out of them is T-shirts, and they haven't exactly made it so like I want to say those movies are sort of like the Leone trilogy. Because like Sergio Leone trilogy being Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. They are a trilogy that are, it's been expanded upon these Westerns that are from like a dream West that he's made. And these movies, and they're iconic and all that. And they even have merch and all that kind of shit, whatever. But they're not necessarily a franchise the way that we see. Because I think there has to be like almost like a conscious world building that you're doing that has narratives that connect between the movies. Whereas Mad Max and from Road Warrior, Mad Max, and then the extended movies that they're making now, I feel like, they're inspired by the same source material. They're, but they're not linearly connected in the narratives. There's like one, the thing for Mad Max, we kind of accept that they're there, that it's the same guy in Thunderdome and all that kind of shit. But they're not making references to shit that happened in Road Warrior.
Jason's looking at you like you just copped to being a diehard Sean and Awe fan.
He can look at me like that all he wants.
I think you're basing your opinion of what makes a franchise specifically on the Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise. Yeah. I think that your brain has been completely rotted by that fucking series of films. It doesn't all have to be like interlinked comic book fucking continuity shit. It's just like a group of films, and it's the same character in every single movie. Therefore, it's a franchise.
Are there any Mad Max video games?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
See, that to me is a sign of a franchise.
Where was it? Show me this Mad Max.
Yeah, but there was
It came out like 5 years ago.
Where on what?
On PlayStation 4. And
So it was a failure of a game. It was. They make video games of all kinds. They made E.T. into a fucking video game.
that's
There
what I was
ain't
about
no
to bring up.
goddamn sequel to that. Call that a franchise?
no.
Well, it's because that
One of the
movie
most
just
famous.
sucked.
That is one of the most famous video games. It's buried in a desert. All right.
I don't know what's worse, that video game or that fucking movie. That movie's terrible. E.T.
Yeah, it is. But still, just because the logic of having a video game with it, and it made multiple ones. When I'm talking about a franchise, I look at there being more conscious approach to it being a franchise, where as opposed to what I look at Mad Max is like a series of films. There's something different to like the material itself. It's similar to Tarantino and Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, referencing characters from one and the other. We don't think of those as a franchise. Okay. And they've made dolls. They've done all the merchandising. They're in a shared universe, but we don't call it a franchise.
Two things. One, seeking guidance that I couldn't get elsewhere. I went on IMDb and looked at their list of all-time best franchises. So the Leon, the Fistful of Dollars series was on there as like top 5, and Home Alone number 20.
Oh, so they considered it a franchise.
Yeah, they consider Home Alone a franchise, and the Leone thing. So it's again, it's subjective, but the real thing I want to understand, because while you guys are talking about this, is like, Jason, what's a good message board or somewhere where I can troll people by insisting that Waterworld was a Mad Max sequel?
I don't know, Reddit, I guess, right?
I'm on it. That's going to infuriate some dorks.
Oh, wait, Letterboxd, is that one where people actually communicate with each other, or is that just like a posting your own thoughts about stuff?
Right,
There's a reason
Discord.
I'm
You get on Discord, you can find shit everybody to argue with, man, about whatever.
Throw the Postman in too while you're at it. I mean, the extended Costner verse.
But-
Another variant of Mad Max, I
No,
guess.
it's not. Mad Max.
Post-apocalyptic.
No, I think it would be the extension of Taylor Negron's role in Better Off Dead. That's what.
Who's Taylor Negron?
Yeah, Taylor Negron, the guy. Remember, he's the mailman who keeps dropping mail and Better Off.
He's
Dead.
listening to Jimi
Walks up.
Hendrix.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right.
yeah, and he walks up and he's like, "Is it okay if I date Beth?" You know, everybody was asking. Beth.
That's some big boy smut there. Like,
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's right. Nah, Taylor Negron rules, man. But yeah,
rest in peace, Taylor Negron.
And when I see, no, it's not Marvel movies that made, dude, this started with Star Wars, man. It made all our minds mush, Jason. You too. You're no better.
Well,
I think you're all better just because I'm trying to give Mad Max some credibility.
When we were talking about this, I came to the conclusion that it's not necessarily any specific franchise that bothers me. It's 3 things. I think the first thing is over-reliance on CGI. The second one is runtime. And the third one is the PG-13 rating. I think all 3 of those things have combined to make movies across all these different franchises universally hard for me to sit down and watch, because they're devoid of adult themes. They're devoid of consequences. People don't die in Star Wars and Marvel movies. They might maybe die for a little while, but they're going to be back in another movie or within that movie itself.
Let's also throw DC in there too, okay? Because DC is the Marvel, the worst Marvel.
And I made a list. Okay, so my wife dragged me to Wonder Woman in 2017, which she fell asleep at. 2 fucking hours and 20 minutes. That first one with Gal Gadot. All right, Matrix Resurrections. I was like, fuck, Neo's back. Right on. 2 hours and 28 minutes. Okay. Wonder Woman 1984. I saw that at my sister's house because everyone was like, well, we're in lockdown. It's COVID. Let's watch Wonder Woman 1984. 2 hours and 31 minutes. Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I will never, ever watch. 4 hours and 2 fucking minutes. John Wick 4, 2 hours and 49 minutes. And I do like Star Wars. I don't like the new movies, but I'll throw a Star Wars in there just for the sake of it. 2 hours and 22 minutes for The Rise of Skywalker. So, like, to me, once you get into that territory, it becomes unwatchable. It's not just like an attention span thing. It's like, you ever go to a Vegas buffet? Any of you ever been to one, like in Vegas?
Yeah.
It's a ton of shit, right? You spend this money and you have like meat carving stations and food from all over the world, and you can just sit there and gorge on all this. But when you finish it, you're like, I don't even remember what I just ate. Like, I have no idea. And that's what these long ass movies do to me. I get out of the fucking theater, I'm like, what did I just see? I don't know. It was a lot of movie, but I don't, the storytelling was so stretched out. It was just a lot of fight scenes. So I don't know. Maybe runtime is my biggest beef out of all those 3 things I listed.
And yet, again, the movies that apparently somehow sidestep all of these conditions are the Hunger Games. Anybody got the stats on the Hunger Games and their length time?
I saw that first one. I didn't see all of those movies, but let's look up Hunger Games.
Yeah, you said you only saw the first one.
That's true, and
you liked it.
I did actually. Yes.
Look at this motherfucker, man.
Hunger Games, 2 hours and 40 minutes. All right,
yeah.
I'll give you that one.
All right, yeah, fucking A. You're talking about the PG-13 rating. That's another good point. Mad Max movies tended to be more aimed in the R department. Okay, so I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying I don't agree that it fits into what I see as being the conscious approach to making film franchises, because the franchising aspect of these movies, of all of these movies, with in my mind the exception of Mad Max, I mean they've been built on making more of them. Maybe the Fast and Furious, no, those are PG-13 from the beginning. Lord of the Rings, I mean that one, are you kidding me? That was building on the back of Star Wars and taking it to the
That's
whole
building on the back of watching two dudes play grab ass and staring at a fucking ring.
Yeah, whatever, man. Hobbits are gay, so what? So it's okay to be gay, right, Jay? I mean, it's okay.
Wait, Jason, do you agree that the entire race of hobbits are in fact gay?
There's some gay shit in there for sure. There's some homoerotic kind of man love happening.
I don't think. I think he's very childlike.
They were a little too close. You know what I mean?
Oh, really?
There were stars in their eyes when they looked at it.
There were. And even if they had a little fucking same-sex hobbit love, so what, man? What they went through war together.
Yeah, speaking of war, they did a good job of making the battle scenes literally 3 times longer than they needed to be.
If you love watching the battle scenes between, all the orcs and shit, I was sitting there enjoying it, man.
Do you like the fantasy genre in general?
No, the Marvel movies haven't made my mind mush, man, because I've wanted the Marvel movies, the way that they've been making them is exactly what I had hoped would happen back when they were making them terribly in the 90s. What was the first Marvel movie that didn't suck? It was Blade, but I didn't know it was a Marvel character. I watched X-Men. X-Men was the first Marvel property that I didn't think was terrible that they made into a movie, and that was because we didn't have anything that good made as a superhero movie since Superman, and I would dare say Batman, but I never liked Tim Burton's Batman that much. I watched it, and I wanted to like it more than I did. I remember watching it going like, there's something about this just seems corny. I remember it being built up to be much more of the blockbustery kind of shit that they produce now. And then when I went, it was just like Ghostbusters 2. When I went to see Batman, I remember thinking, like, there's something about this that's not that good. And Batman Returns kind of made it more apparent. These were some like more soundstagey Hammer horror film inspired look, gothic look. It was Tim Burton bringing his vision into it. And what really kind of sold it more than anything else was Jack Nicholson's performance as the Joker, because he hammed it up like a motherfucker. And Michael Keaton was a good choice for a Batman too. I don't deny that. But when it came to what they were selling it on, that it's the Dark Knight and all this other stuff, the action was fairly corny. So when Christopher Nolan came along and made his version of Batman, that was the Batman I really kind of enjoyed watching, because it felt approach to it with a real life kind of thing, whatever, blah, 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 blah.
Is that when Batman starts talking in that gravelly voice? Batman,
I don't give a fuck about the gravelly voice. The fact that people make a big deal about that is, I'm like, I'm sorry, are you not watching the same movie where he's like doing like, this is shot in like real fucking Himalaya looking mountains?
No, I think Nate's onto something, because like the thing that always distracted me about the Batman movie was Bane sounded like an old man sitting on his own balls.
I like that. Batman, I'll beat you.
What is that voice? Is he like he was half going to kill him or half offer him a butterscotch candy?
He sounded like a creepy pedophile. I was all for Bane's voice by Tom Hardy in Nolan's version. My point being, though, I mean, dude, what do you? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you like Tim Burton? You had Jack Palance in that motherfucker, okay, man.
I love the Christopher Nolan Batmans. I'm just saying, when I think about when the first thing I think about is Bane's voice, like 100% of the time.
What was the third movie, man? I mean, that's way later too.
Made an impact on me, man.
the Marvel movies again. So they came up with X-Men and the next two, which then also looked promising. They made Spider-Mans, they made all this stuff. And the thing was, they started making them better. And I wanted them to be interconnected the way Marvel, would in the comic books. And so when they did the MCU, when they started the MCU and it became successful and it was able to work, I love it. That's
look, if you're going to talk superhero franchise, there is only one great one, and that's Superman.
The original from like late 70s, early 80s.
Nathan, it's a franchise. It's a universe. Look, okay. If I may state my case, David. Okay, the first one is just kind of your solid like origin story. The only thing I had an issue with that one was when he spun the world backwards to reverse time. I didn't buy that, but otherwise, it had everything you needed. You understood what he was doing. And then Superman 2 was awesome. There was like 3 Superman, and for some reason, he decided to get rid of his powers. I didn't realize it at the time because I was a kid, and now I'm thinking it was because he just didn't want to pulverize what's her name, Margot Kidder's cervix. I think that's why he got rid of his power. And then it ends like with the pettiness. He has to go all the way after all that, like saving the world. He has to go back and like deck that trucker that punched him out, right? And then the greatest superhero movie of all time is Superman 3. That was the most ridiculously wonderful movie I have ever seen in the superhero genre. Do you remember the plot of this?
Yeah.
So
Richard Pryor, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it was clearly just looking for something to put Richard Pryor in because he was hot. And what the plot was this: Richard Pryor, as a subplot, was down on his luck, so he saw a flyer for a computer class, and he goes and sits down in this like weird community computer class and becomes a computer whiz. Okay, so then he somehow gets involved with Lex Luthor, and he works at this lab, and Lex Luthor had contracted them to synthesize kryptonite because he wanted to kill Superman, because that's what Lex Luthor does. So because he's a lowlife, he couldn't get the right.
It wasn't Lex Luthor. It wasn't Lex Luthor. It was a different bad guy this time. Lex Luthor didn't appear in the third one. It was the guy played by, I'm forgetting his name, but he was in Basketball also. He's a classic actor. He had the jawline because he had hair. This bad guy had hair. He was
I was so distracted by the beauty of this movie, I didn't even care about particulars. So he has all of the ingredients, and because he's a lazy lowlife, he looks at this cigarette carton and it says tar. So he adds tar to it. So long story short, this batch of kryptonite, when Superman exposed to it, it turned him into a dick. That's all it did. It didn't kill him, and it gave him inexplicably a 5 o'clock shadow and a darker suit.
Yeah.
And the whole movie is just him like being mean to kids, trying to like sexually women.
He got drunk.
He got hammered and started like flicking peanuts through the beer bottle.
Breaking stuff.
And then eventually it becomes Superman versus a supercomputer. But of course, because Richard Pryor was the whole point of this movie, he became a good guy in the end. And it was a magical thing to watch Superman be a dick for most.
Robert Vaughn, that was the bad guy in this one. Robert Vaughn.
And so, full disclosure, I didn't see Quest for Peace. I didn't have to. Like, if they had followed up Superman 3 with just a 5-hour like Lars von Trier film of him just trying to grind one out on a toilet, like, still greatest franchise of all time.
But just for the sake of this conversation, the Superman 4 Quest of Peace was a Golan Globus Canon Films Superman movie. I mean, think of all the stupid fucking movies they made, like Breakin' and Breakin' 2 and like Over the Top, Invasion USA. The studio that made all those dumbass movies made Superman 4, and it's horrible but worth seeing if you ever get a chance.
Did you like the remake in the teens?
No, I didn't like Superman Returns. That is actually Bryan Singer's gay Superman. A lot of subtext. It's the gay father because he has a kid with Lois. But he has no interest in Lois. He has more interest in Jimmy Olsen and the boys. There's no action in it. I remember Kevin Smith talked about it before I actually saw it, and so it kind of might have even tainted a little bit of my thoughts on it. But when I watched it, he called it boring Superman, I think. And it was, because it was Superman who does nothing. He literally almost does nothing throughout the whole movie. He saved a plane. That's on the cover of the DVD, and which again, it's Bryan Singer's gay Superman. he's on the cover holding the tip of the most phallic fucking airplane you've ever seen that he's saving. And then I watch it, and he's resolved something with Lois, kinda, but Lois has moved on, even has a new dude, and finds out the kid is his. So they're like trying to make peace with that, but he has no interest in Lois. The climax of the movie, Lex Luthor, played by Kevin Spacey, just saying, it's getting gayer. The climax of the movie where he's got Superman in his grip. He has Superman from behind, mind you, and is holding him, arm over his chest, and he shanks him in the back with a kryptonite shiv. He stabs him with a phallic symbol into his back from behind.
Are you making the argument that ambiguously gay duo is a Superman franchise?
No, that's Batman and Robin, dude. Come on.
It sounds like Superman 3 is the movie for you, is what I'm saying, what I'm hearing.
Superman 3 is great. It's bad, but it's great. Because it's like watching Superman 3, that's like Police Academy combined with Superman. It's just a lot of bad jokes and a lot of bad ideas.
It's a little more rapey than Police Academy, but yeah.
It's just like you said, it's like barbecue sauces. It's whatever your taste moves to, but they are kind of undeniable now. Like everybody makes movies now primarily with the thought of, oh yeah, what if we could make another? It's refreshing when a movie can be good and not have to have a sequel or thoughts of merchandising out. And I am a Marvel fan, but that's exactly what Marvel aimed to be. Lord of the Rings, that's a little different. I was not, like you said, you asked if I was a fantasy fan. Fuck dragons and witches and wardrobes and fucking wizards and all that shit. Never cared about them in my life. However, I am a stoner. Still, I'm a stoner at heart. When Lord of the Rings came out, I remember I was working at Atari, and one of the guys there was like, Dave, have you seen Lord of the Rings yet? I'm like, nah, I got no interest in these fucking Hobbit shits. I've seen the cartoons. I don't care. And, oh no, Dave, you should probably check it out. I think you'll dig it. And I was like, whatever, just didn't pay attention. And then I'm hanging out at our old friend Mike Sill's house. Okay. I was hanging out a lot over at his place, mainly on Mondays or whatever. We smoke bong loads after work. And one day I'm there and he's like, yeah, just got the extended DVD version of Fellowship of the Ring. So when I'm getting high someplace, I can give a fuck what's on. So he put it on. And next thing you know, by the end of the movie, I'm like, oh my God, is Frodo going to be okay? And it's the end of the movie. I'm like, oh, that's right. There's 2 more. So I became a Lord of the Rings fan of the movies right after that. Because I like Peter Jackson movies. And he made Lord of the Rings interesting to me. Gay hobbits and all. I just think they're British. British are pretty gay. So what? Jason, you've been awfully quiet except for your little retort about Mad Max. What do you have to...
Okay. Regarding franchises, here's my thing. And particularly Indiana Jones. So I fully admit that I'm a pretentious fucking snob. And so my interest in film franchises is pretty limited. However, I was a total snob about all the Marvel movies and I just didn't watch any of them. I'm not interested in that. I just dismissed them out of hand. I've started watching them because Dave is relentless and won't shut the fuck up. And they're fine. They're fine. They're entertaining enough and whatever. I'm not like invested, but they're fine to watch. They'll kill a couple of hours. Now, Indiana Jones, like I just recently watched the latest Indiana Jones movie. And this is something that also I found confusing about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is the fact that people seem to think that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Dial of Destiny are in any way, shape, or form different from the first 3 movies. I mean, it's the same shit. It's all Indiana Jones. It's just like the earlier movies. I mean, Nathan did clarify when he had criticisms that he didn't like the CG, which I totally feel is fair. CG has ruined everything. CG makes me sad, and I don't blame him for that. But people who have no problem with CG also feel like these are worse movies in some way, and they're more Indiana Jones. It's like there's always been some supernatural element in every single Indiana Jones movie. So why is it weird that there are alien crystal skulls or a dial that can like make you go through time portals? It doesn't make any sense to me, like the criticisms people have about it, because to me, they're all essentially the same thing. They're all just kind of not very nutritional, homogenized action gloop that is interesting to watch, I guess. But I don't really expect to get a lot of like mental stimulation out of them. They're just entertainment.
I suppose if they made a sequel to We Are the Flesh, though, and started franchising that shit, you guys need to go check out We Are the Flesh.
Here's a franchise.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Is the second film in the Teenage Apocalypse trilogy by Greg Araki. Yeah.
Is We Are the Flesh in theaters now? Can I go out and see
Oh,
it?
it's been long out of theaters.
It was in
I think
theaters.
it's on the
about
run. The movie that's on the run from the law.
We Are the Flesh is good, man.
Okay. Not saying it's bad. Just saying you start franchising that, making his and hers T-shirts for brothers and sisters. It was really funny. There was a meme that I got to share on my Instagram. It was not so much of a meme, but it was the Pixar version of a Serbian film. And if you've seen a Serbian film, it's the joke being it's far from a Pixar movie, but it's a father, a wife, and a son, and those are the core characters of a Serbian film. And there's some pretty depraved shit that goes on in the movie. And my nephew, he responded with a sad face, and I was sitting there I was like, "There's no sad faces here. This is a joke, and it's a funny one too." But he goes, "Oh no, that movie just fucked me up." I'm like, "Really?" And my nephew replied, he goes, "Yeah, I think it's like some kind of allegory on how the Serbian government was treating its people or whatever." And I was like, here's my nephew saying allegory. It was so adorable. Pixar movies. I mean, here's a whole genre and a style. Not all of them have sequels, but you have Toy Story, you have Cars, you have whatever. But all of Pixar kind of feels like one large franchise.
Is the Minions part of Pixar?
No.
That is other level brilliant shit.
And why so?
It's completely done without saying actual English words. It's like a revival of like silent comedy, but with noises rather than sound. And it's just really, really, really funny. And the gags are very unique to having to accept that as a premise. And the plots are interesting. Those are always good. We're dependably entertaining and grossing. And I would say The Secret Lives of Pets 2 is great. Every other children's movie I've seen is god awful, including Toy Story, including all those. They're almost unwatchable crap.
I think they do Despicable Me also.
That's like the Minions. I think that was the first Minions
movie. So they've aimed to kind of make the movies that are like digitally animated, but that have humor that appeals to the parents as well as the adults. And Pixar aims more towards the kids with some references and nods to the adults, but it's more primarily aimed at the kids. But they're all aimed at family markets because it sells more tickets. That's what Sandler movies aim to do. I mean, Sandler, being that he started off with kind of raunchy comedy beginnings, but in the end, all of his formulaic movies are aimed for kids with their parents.
I've heard that too. I think that the difference is like the Minions movies are actually funny. Like it's hard to explain because it's like hard to explain a physical.
It begs the question. I'm sorry, man. I had to do that.
Never apologize for your own illiteracy.
I don't know. That's kind of what you're saying. That's what it means. Doesn't it beg the question according to what I've read before?
Now, begging the question means you're basically having a circular argument. You're saying this is true because this is true.
And you said that those are funny. They're just funny.
I didn't say that's why they were funny. I said it's hard to explain why they're funny because it's physical humor.
Okay.
I'll see you in text.
All right, man. I don't know. Seems like it begs the question to me, goddammit. I don't know. I don't see anything, but whatever. Maybe make a franchise of that with the Minions. Minions 5 begs the question. So, in the end, I don't know. All this shit sucks. It's all the same. And I like some of them. I don't know about you guys, but I like these movies.
I like Austin Powers.
That's a franchise. I would agree. That's a franchise. Right there. All right. Well, I think we've talked enough about film franchises, and you know what? We got nowhere. Which It was circular arguments, which, as I was just told, it begs the question. God damn it! So yeah, right, Jason, right, our fucking literary nerd motherfucker. Yeah, like I said, we did get nowhere with that topic, but whatever. It's fun. It was fun to talk about. Yeah.